Signature TV, news in your pocket.
With a population of about 36 million people, the Southeast is awash with stories. Every day on Southeast News, we tell the peculiar story of the Southeast and her people.
Our Southeast should be the Silicon Valley of Nigeria.
Their successes, achievements, and daily challenges. Do you have a Southeast story to share? Community achievements and challenges, completed and uncompleted projects, bad roads, water scarcity, erosion, flooding, insecurity, or even disagreements? Bring it on to Southeast News. On Southeast News, no story is too big or too small. Southeast News. Let's tell our story. Showing on Signature TV every weekday at 4 p.m. WAT, 1600 hours GMT.
Thank you for staying with us. With us in studio is a legal practitioner, writer, and policy analyst, Okike Ezugo. He's going to be giving us his perspective on Nigeria in search of acceptable constitution. Good morning, Okike. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning. Great. So very quickly, can you tell us the progress so far with the 2025 constitutional review? There's been a lot of noise, and we understand that it's been in phases. So to date, what has been the progress so far with this constitutional review?
The committee that is started with the responsibility of collecting the opinions of the Nigerian people across the 6 geopolitical zones. Because the issue is that the 1999 constitution, which is the ground norm or the law that is presently in force, was initiated by a military administration.
Yes.
So the argument that it does not reflect the wishes of the Nigerian people, because from the beginning it was not a people-driven constitution, and that is why there has been clamor for its amendment, substantial amendments, or even outright a replacement. So that is why the campaign is currently ongoing for consultation with people across the geopolitical zones in the country. And the committee in the two federal houses, that is the Federal House of Representatives and the Senate, formed and started with the responsibility of collecting these opinions. They are still moving around the country, collecting the opinions of the people, trying to reflect the wishes of the Nigerian people in the subsequent amendment.
But like you rightly put it, that the 1999 constitution does not reflect the wishes or the interests of the people. Some people and other schools of thought have actually put forward the fact that the constitution, 1999 constitution, should be expunged outrightly rather than amended. Given your expertise as a lawyer and a political analyst, what's your view of that? You think it should be expunged or just amended?
It is just that it is becoming too frequent, and it is beginning to sound ridiculous that after every 4 years there's a call assembly, for constitutional amendment, which is not what it is. The Constitution of the United States of America has lasted over 2 centuries, and it has recorded a total of 27 amendments, and this is after deep national introspection and reflection. And the foundation of any constitution, so to say, is never perfect.
Yeah,
it is always flawed. The 1999 constitution came into being when the military were at the helm of affairs, and in the process of transitioning to a democratic system of government, they had to put up a constitution which is going to support the new political and legal framework, and that was how the 1999 constitution came into being. And it was drafted in consultation with some of the best legal experts in the country, and it took fundamental and essential features from democratic constitutions across the one, which has some wonderful provisions and is substantially flawed, just as every constitution. So I'm not of the opinion that it should be outrightly expunged, which is going to be problematic because we are going to encounter a lot of legal bottlenecks.
What kinds of legal bottlenecks, really?
Yeah, that Nigeria is a multiracial, multilingual, and a multi-religious country. We are ethnically varied substantially, and when people make arguments in Nigeria, for the arrangement of anything in the country, it is not informed by logic or what is going to be good for everybody. It is often informed by tribalism, and other ethnic and parochial considerations.
Yes.
So if you expect that you can bring the Nigerian people in their multi-racialism and multi-religious composition to come together and come up with a consensus on how we can adopt a wonderful constitution, that is a sort of idealistic pipe dream. It is not going to work.
You think so?
Here for a century, and it is not going to make headway. That is why no civilian administration has been able to curate a state despite several attempts in the past. State creation was possible during the military era because they did it with just a decree. Without consultation with anybody.
So state creation is one of the most popular, demands from this review. What's your opinion so far? Because we have seen advertorials support the state, support. What do you think? What do you make out of all this? Because you just said that state creation was possible by decrees. You don't think it's possible with the constitution as Nigeria is currently. What do you make of all this? You think it's a waste of time?
State creation is going to be important, in my opinion, for one reason. Because if you check the 6 geopolitical zones that make up the Nigerian Federation, you see that the southeastern part of the country has been marginalized with the number of states.
Yes.
The Northwest has as much as 7 states. And then every other geopolitical zone in the country has at least 6 states. But the Southeast is left with just 5 states. This brings about enormous inequity in the distribution of resources.
Sure.
If a new state is going to be curated to bring a sense of balance and to do something about this disequilibrium, then it is fine, but it has to be from the Southeast. Because we are the only geopolitical zone in the country.
It makes
just 5. So it's in the sense of equity, in the sense of justice, it makes a lot of sense. But I don't think that the creation of multiple states, as it is currently being proposed, even ridiculously, is any solution to some of the problems that Nigeria is facing. It is only necessary for us to create additional one state in the southeast to bring a sense of justice and equilibrium in the entire national equation.
Now, let me take you back to what you said. You said that state creation was, or curation, in your words, was only possible by decrees, during the military era.
Because if you look at the section of the current 1999
my question is, do you think using Southeast as case study, because we've agreed it's logical that they get an extra state, do you think it's possible to make that happen in this era? Because the last one was during the military era. Is it possible, the way our constitution runs, to make that happen in this era for the Southeast?
Realistically and objectively speaking, it is not possible. It has become a kind of a political ritual, for every administration that comes into power to organize a constitutional conference, which I think is just to compensate some political jobbers, who gets temporary employment as organizing members of these committees, and then you have hefty budgets made and distribution of resources in that respect, and at the end, nothing happens. It happened with the Jonathan
2014.
Yeah, it happened with even Obasanjo was the one who organized the most extensive national conference in this respect, and nothing came out of it. I'm not expecting that the Tinubu-led government is going to be magical this time in bringing it to fruition.
So you're saying that these constitutional conferences, they submit their findings and recommendations, and it's just swept.
Hostage politics, because every government is trying to tantalize the people to make it seem like they are envisioning a sort of Eldorado for the people, that are trying to bring about adjustments of the fundamental and structural inequalities that we have in the country. but it is just to pay political lip service and to hold the gathering in preparation for the next election.
So if this is a vicious cycle, how do we escape the mouse race, the rat race? This is a vicious cycle. It has happened with Passenger, with Jonathan, and with Tinubu. How do we break away from this rat race? What should be done?
Well, I don't know what should be done if you ask me, because there is no political will on the part of people who are constitutionally saddled with the responsibility to bring some of these things to fruition. They are using it to play politics, and I'm not going to force them to do the needful. But the creation of a additional state for the Southeast is essential if we are going to have a sense of justice, because it is partly responsible for the agitation we witness in the Southeast about the creation of the African state.
Yes.
Because the people of the Southeast justifiably feel that they have been marginalized. So if it is a country that is interested in its continued coexistence and in enthroning, the principles of justice and equity, they should do something robustly and swiftly to bring about the creation of an additional Southeastern state to bring about a sense of balance.
Another very popular agitation in this constitutional review is about women in politics and being given seats in leadership. What's your take on that?
You know about when women got the votes in the United States of America, I wouldn't believe when, and even in Great Britain. So the feminist agitation or movement, it has been long in coming. It has been long running. And I think the best approach to it is not tokenism, because that is what that agitation is about. When, ipso facto, some seats in the Federal House of Representatives should be allocated to women, whether they run or not. And then it shouldn't be that way. Women should compete. But
Yes.
There should be a favorable competing ground for everybody. And women should be able to come out and get involved in the political process. And they will get support. You can see that despite the fact that the United States of America has existed for over 2 centuries, it is yet to produce a female president. But the agitation in the United States is not that, for the Republican Party should compulsorily field a female presidential aspirant, and the Democratic Party should compulsorily field a female presidential aspirant. So that we precluded a situation where women will have to compete with men. That is not democratic. It is tokenism, and it is dangerous for the political and economic development.
Could you expound on
Very
that?
serious
Could you expound on that?
I said it is tokenism, a dangerous form of
Yeah, that's word.
affirmative action.
We need you to break it down.
Yeah, it is a dangerous form of affirmative action. Where the reward of people, with offices and responsibilities is
Yes.
not based on merit,
Yes.
but on some considerations which are outside merit. If you have an ambitious state, which is interested in maximizing its best and getting the best in leadership, then you have to go through the filtration processes.
Sure,
You
sure,
have to
sure.
compete, and then when you get this responsibility, you know that you work for it. This is just like someone who comes and runs a business, has that entrepreneurial spirit. It's largely different from someone who inherited a family
Yes,
business. There's
yes,
a great likelihood of mismanagement on the part of the one who inherited a family business, and from the one who is just inspired, who is an entrepreneur by motivation and vision.
Must
And
have
works
failed and succeeded and
to
failed multiple
realize their
times
business
to
goals,
learn
their business goals.
some lessons.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, let's still talk about women involvement. Women are making headways in other areas of endeavors, but then they're nowhere near the corridors of power. What are some inherent drivers that have actually contributed to this? You think it's strictly constitutional, or there are other contributing factors? What are your
Women are
thoughts?
not the only marginalized group of people in Nigerian politics.
Okay.
The young people are, the poor are, because the electioneering processes in Nigeria are heavily financialized.
Naturally excludes them.
Yeah, you don't know when you want to buy ticket to run for the Federal House of Representatives using any of the major political platforms. For instance, you have to cough up millions of naira, and you can see the economic situation in the country. So if you've not been involved in leadership, to have involved in corrupt enrichment, one way or the other, it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for you to have access to that kind of money, which you will now use to aspire for office. And when you buy this ticket, you have to make arrangement for electioneering campaign. You have to employ your staff. It is just extremely capital intensive. So because of this, it naturally excludes a lot of classes of persons,
Hmm.
women inclusive, because there has been this disproportionate
Distribution of wealth.
distribution of wealth between the male and the economic environment is heavily dominated by men, because of the traditional rules of women in the society. It is just now that women are beginning to make inroad into the corporate sector and to be serious entrepreneurs. Traditionally, it was not like that. But it's a process of social evolution, and I believe every time we would be able to get there. And you can see that the political arena is also excessively masculine. You see what happens during elections. It is something that ordinarily it would be difficult for a woman to stand that kind of dogfight, if you permit me to use that expression. So these are some of the inherent structural barriers and disadvantages that women and other marginalized group, face in getting elected into office. You can see that Kamala Harris was the one who ran as the nominee for the Democratic Party. She did not need to hire people to snatch ballot boxes for her or to get involved in any excessively masculine pig fight for office. It was a pure democratic process based on her competence, track record, and credibility. She was able to compete favorably, and bound out of the stage with her head very high. So we are hoping to have a system, which is going to make it possible for women to compete without needing to do things that are naturally unfitted for women to do.
All right, Barrister. Okay, so before I let you go, what other outcries or agitations are as popular as the state creation and then the affirmative action for women in the constitution?
Electoral reform.
Let's what
Electoral reform.
what does that entail?
Electoral reform. The electoral process needs to be more electronic. Like the accreditation.
I'm sorry to cut you short at this, but when you say this, most voters, especially those who voted in 2023, they just wave it away with a sigh, because we were told beavers will walk, but we also what played out. So what will be different in this
reform? This also raises the fundamental question. If I am a writer,
okay.
Way back when I was in the university, I did an article about the impressive collection of loans of the Nigerian Federation, and the conclusion I reached is that the problem of this country is not a paucity of loans. We have an impressive collection of legislation. The problem is the abject lack of will for its enforcement, and then the general attitude of the Nigerian people. So to me, the issue is not even constitutional amendment. It has to be granted that the constitution of Nigeria, of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is considerably flawed, but it is not as dangerous, for our being as a polity, as the general cultural orientation of the Nigerian people, who for some reasons I can't readily explain, are actually lawless. Because the bill, as you talked about, it was written into the Electoral Act that was passed with great excitement and expectation. After the election, INEC, which is the body that is constitutionally charged with the responsibility of overseeing the election process, turned around and did something different, to the disappointment and chagrin of the Nigerian people. So in this instance, now should we blame the absence of law or the violation of an existing law?
We are local.
The international community is observing every
Just finished taking
Why the main market is in chaos. People are...
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye.
Aye. We have taken the bill by the board.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.